Hello, everyone. My name is Cynthia Ruiz, and I am a professor, author, leadership expert, executive coach, and Cherokee citizen. Today, I'm really excited because the topic is storytelling. And anybody that knows Native culture knows that storytelling is a big part of our culture. And I have one of the top storytellers in the world with me today. So let me give him a proper introduction. I'm going to be talking with Robert Lewis, who is an award-winning Native storyteller. He's an author, artist. He's from Cherokee, Navajo, and Apache descent. He's an adjunct professor and he teaches art at Northeastern State University. And, I've had a chance to meet him several times, and he's just an all-around good guy. Hi, Robert.
Hi, how y'all doing? CO.
So, Robert, tell me a little bit about the history of storytelling.
Oh. History goes back amongst Cherokees and other tribes. It's basically are along the lines of where we kept our memories, our historical background, where the tribes came from, how they grouped together as clans. The history of the tribe was kept amongst the elders. And sometimes they would use a mnemonic device like a belt, and it would have symbols on them. And the symbols would remind the person who was out there telling them, this is the time we crossed here. This is when we met these people. This is when this came into our knowledge. And it was basically a way of teaching all the young people out there their history and their culture. So the Cherokees, they're considered an Iroquois dialect. They say we lived amongst the Iroquois. One of our oldest stories says we came from an island in the south and came across a huge wall of ice, and then headed towards the sun, came across some of the mound builders, came across the Iroquois Confederacy, lived with them for a while, then moved down to the southern regions and took over that area. And that's one of our older stories. It would have been kind of inlaid inside of one of these belts. And so somebody could translate this history back to the people.
Now, I have noticed that with a lot of the stories, they involve animals. Like the animals are a part of the story. Why is that?
For the most part, we had a close connection with nature. We lived in it, and we realized if you affect the environment's also going to be affected and probably either do harm to you or, for the most part, help you, depending on how you treat the environment. So there's an interconnectedness that's there. You won't see it in modern society, but you did see it amongst tribal people. And there are natives who are traditional natives around this area who still treat the earth in that manner. I know hunters who go out there and hunt for their own food in the wintertime, hunt deer, and still follow their traditions of going out there and asking blessings for the deer before they go and take the deer's life, as a way of making sure that this connection stays with the earth and that we're reminding them that we're thankful for this deer bringing this life to us to sustain us. So this spirit of the deer goes back out into the realm and then comes back down. And there's a little deer, we used to call him, when we're around, asked the deer, where you asked before your life was taken? And the deer's spirit from the blood from the dying deer responds to the little deer and says, yes, they asked for his blessing before my life was taken. Mm. And so these teachings were taught down to the hunters. And so everybody's had to say a blessing. If not, sickness would come to you. And so for the Cherokees and other tribes, people out there, there's this deep connection with the earth. So we make sure that we say blessings to the earth, thank the earth for what we've been given. Blessings for our food is not uncommon amongst Cherokees. So for the most part, when you're out there and we're out there with this connectedness with the earth, you try to make sure that with the animals sometimes take on characteristics of people. One of them is rabbit. Rabbit's a trickster and a mischief maker, gets into trouble. And so for the most part, some aspects of people's, how they treat others is translated into the animals.
Wow, interesting. So tell me about your personal story. How did you become a storyteller?
Years ago, I would hear stories told to me by my dad. My dad's Navajo and Apache. My mom's Cherokee. My dad would tell stories from time to time about a coyote. And amongst Navajos and Apaches, the coyote, Southwest tribe, he's their trickster. He's their mischief maker. Ravens for the Northwest coast. There's a man called Sane Day for some of the Plains tribes. but there's always a trickster, a mischief maker. And so my dad would tell stories and I would listen to him. And I'd never heard stories told like this. I'd hear them from a book. My mom would read books to me, but my dad would tell stories off the top of his head. And so years down the road, I'm at the museum at the Cherokee Heritage Center, and there's a tour group waiting to come in. And when they're sitting there and they're waiting, some of the kids are a little bored. So I'd sit there, do you want to hear a story? And I would tell them one of my dad's stories. Well, somebody saw me from the museum. Her name's Barbara Gertie, and says, I didn't know you were a storyteller. Says, you did a good job. The next thing I know, they started offering storytelling to other groups that would come to the museum, and I got to be the storyteller. So that's basically where it started. So something I heard when I was like 7 years of age changed and transformed my life.
Wow. So I know that you know many, many, many stories. Do you have one favorite story that just you love to tell?
Uh, I have a couple of several of them that I tell. Some of them are long, some of them are short. Um, it just varies. When I go out to a storytelling session, it's whoever shows up happens to be there. Usually it's young children. Sometimes I'll get a mixed crowd. Somebody will walk in wearing a t-shirt, has a turtle on it. I'll tell a story about a turtle. Somebody walk by wearing a necklace, has a wolf emblem on it. I'll tell a story about a wolf. Um, I tell a story about how I ended up at Northeastern because of an eagle. An eagle flew over my head when I was debating whether or not to go become an artist. I needed a sign from the creator, and the eagle shows up out of nowhere. Bald eagle flies right over my head. There's a sign. So I followed it to a nearby park, and it's sitting up in a tree. And I look up at it, and he even waits for me to get underneath the tree, staring at me. And then I asked him, I guess I'm supposed to be an artist. And he headed towards Tahlequah, where there's an art school. So the next day I signed up everything, sent it in, and then I end up in Tahlequah. And that's basically started everything here. So an eagle got me to Tahlequah, and then children got me to being storyteller.
Well, I believe that when you're really connected to Mother Earth and nature, that you do get signs, you do
Yeah.
get messages. I mean, I get them all the time. You just have to
Mhm.
be open, and most people are really
Mhm.
not open to it. So,
Yes.
congratulations for being
Yeah.
open.
Some people don't see that. Yeah. Another thing is that one time I was scared about flying in a plane. Never been on a plane before. And so I was nervous. I went to Southwest, had to fly me down to Houston for an event. Never been on a plane, so I'm sitting there kind of worried. I'm looking out the windows. Is this going to be okay? And Alaska Airlines was going by, and I'm looking at it. I was supposed to be on Southwest, but I'm watching this Alaska airline on the back, and on the back, instead of the man's Eskimo's face or Luke on his face on there, I see a rabbit sitting there looking at me. And I thought, oh, okay, there's a sign. I love hawks. So we're on the plane, we're heading down a taxiway. I come around the corner, and there's all these little gate numbers, and they're sitting there flashing to let you know which gate the pilot's supposed to be on. I'm looking after red-tailed hawk lands and looks at me, and I think, okay, this is gonna be fine. So ever since then, I've never worried about being on a plane.
Now, you're a Cherokee National Treasure. What does that mean?
Mhm.
And how do you get that designation?
Oh, people choose you. People who sometimes they're other national treasures have been chosen. I'm lucky. I've been one of the first national treasure for storytelling chosen. My cousin Chuji Kingfisher is the second one. But normally it was a designation designed and centered around Wilma Mankeller, who helped create it. Decided that we need to have our national elders recognized for their craftsmanship. It used to be a craftsman award, and there's basically basket makers, pottery makers, weavers, uh, people who are good with flint knapping, things of that nature that was being lost. It was called the Lost Arts Project. And so when they gathered them and they started honoring them, later on it got changed to like national treasures, national craftsmen. And so I got honored to be a storyteller for them. And it's a high honor, and I'm very happy that I was chosen. And it's allowed me to go to even more places to help share this aspect of our culture.
Now, if somebody out there that's watching is interested in telling and wants to become a storyteller, what are the steps? What do you recommend to them?
A lot of it's your memory. There are some scientists are saying that children today aren't having their part of their memory brain to develop primarily because of the phone. To Google, you can Google whatever information you want. It pops up for you. But when I was growing up, we didn't have Google. We had like three channels on the TV, and two would clear, and one was always fuzzy. But the scientists talked about the fact that this isn't being developed in children. And when I was growing up, we had to write everything down, re-go over our notes over and over and over again to make sure it's stuck inside your head. And I like music, so I listen to music, songs. I like songs, And even children today who have come up to me says, I'd like to become a storyteller, but I don't know if I can work on my memory. I'd always ask them, says, do you have a favorite song you like? Some person you think, oh, I love Beyonce, I like Adele or something. They'll come up there, Maroon 5, but they'll tell me who it is. And I said, can you sing me some of their songs? And they would. I said, that's the part of your brain that you're remembering that person's songs. It's like another aspect of storytelling. Some songs are just stories, they're just in song form. And so if you remember those aspects of that and keep working on it, you can also develop that part of your brain to help remember your stories. I love poetry. So I love poems, and I studied poetry in college when I got to college. And that is another aspect later on helped me to remember stories. So it's best if you know the beginning and the end and the middle. Every storyteller will tell a story a little bit different. Some of them emphasize one character more than another. Some of them will take different characters and add them. I normally pull people up and involve them with a story, and I'll start telling a story. I've done this myself where I've had a characters and stories, and there's only like maybe 3 or 4 characters in the story, and I have 7 children standing there. So I've got to come up with 4 more characters. So I'll just add other animals and give them different lines and aspects to it and flesh out the story.
So you kind of ad lib.
I ad lib an awful lot. When I worked at the Cherokee Heritage Center during the summer months, we had a summer play. I was a stage actor for a number of years. And I loved it when everything went off book. When it means off book, it means something happened on stage. A rock fell down, skunk ran across the stage, snake went over in front of people. The girls are screaming, it's supposed to be snowing, but there's a snake going by. And I would ad lib with it because you can't ignore it if something goes by. One time we had a flash pot go off on stage. It's basically set up for the Civil War explosion, but that was after we had a party. So we're in our party session. We're going around, and I was one of the people in there talking to the captain of the guard. Wants to dance with my daughter, and I said, "Yes, you can dance with my daughter. How do you like the dinner?" And he says, "I love the dinner. Your wife's a good cook." And we did that for weeks. Then one week the flash pot goes off. Right when I said, "How do you like the dinner?" "Oh, your wife's a good cook." It blew up. Everybody in the audience went, and I turned, yes, she's a good cook, but sometimes she leaves the lid on the beans for too long and explodes just like it just did now. I scared that cat. Look, you scared Miss Johnson's cat up the tree. We're gonna have to get that thing down later on. But go ahead and dance with my daughter. And then went on.
So one thing I noticed about your storytelling, and it's very entertaining, and you bring a lot of comedy into it. Is that
Mhm.
traditional storytelling, or is that just your take on it?
That's probably my personal take on it. I enjoy laughing. Enjoy having people laugh and enjoy the stories. When I would do tours for the ancient village, I would take people in there and show them aspects of it. And sometimes somebody would say something or make a comment on something, and I would just run with it. There was this log we used to have inside as one of the tours, and it was supposed to be a dugout canoe, but because of the time frame people have done, they chiseled it out with a chainsaw. And I'm sitting there, and one guest walks by and says, "Hey, you got a good looking beaver works on that." I says, "Yeah, you tie that beaver up pretty good. You get them straight lines going down there." And so I started using that as an example of people would walk up because the first thing they said, "That's done with a chainsaw." I said, "No, you get a beaver, tie his tail up just right, and go down the line."
Well, if anybody wants to see some of Robert's stories, go to YouTube. I think Cherokee Nation, or just go to YouTube and put Robert Lewis, and a lot of his stories come up.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, we
Yeah.
don't have time for a story today, but he has a lot of stories on YouTube.
Yes.
So, Robert, is there anything that you would like to share with our audience as we close out today?
I miss everyone. I wish I could come out there and see you in person. Hopefully, we're going to be able to do this soon. I just got my first shot for my vaccine today, and I got to go to get my next one about 3 weeks from now. But everything's looking good, and I've been told that maybe by November we might be able to start these at-large meetings again and be able to go out and visit in public and have a seat in a restaurant and actually eat in an actual restaurant.
Well, you're welcome to Los Angeles anytime. We thank you. We appreciate your time here.